The morning sun was pale and reluctant, hiding behind clouds that looked as tired as the man who slowly crossed the busy street toward the grand marble building. The glass doors of Summit National Bank gleamed like mirrors, reflecting the man's worn-out frame. His coat was frayed at the sleeves, his shoes torn at the edges, and his hair, though gray, carried a quiet dignity. His name was Mr. Howard, though no one in that crowd of suits and shining cars knew it. To them, he was just another beggar wandering too far from the alleyways. When he stepped inside, the air-conditioned chill embraced him, and immediately, a few customers turned to stare. The contrast between his tattered clothes and the polished marble floors was almost too sharp. The security guard, a young man barely in his 20s, frowned and moved closer. "Sir, are you lost?" he asked cautiously. Mr. Howard smiled politely and shook his head. "No, son. I'm here to deposit some money." His voice was calm, almost amused. But the guard chuckled, unsure whether to take him seriously or escort him out. From behind the glass walls of her office, Ms. Amanda Reynolds, the bank manager, watched the scene unfold. She was proud, sharp, and utterly devoted to appearances. Her first thought wasn't curiosity, it was irritation. "Why do we let people like this in here?" she muttered, stepping out with her heels clicking against the floor. The room fell quieter as she approached. "Sir," she said, forcing a polite smile, "this is a private client facility. We don't typically handle small cash transactions here." Mr. Howard bowed his head slightly. "I understand, ma'am, but I'd still like to open an account, even if it's a small one." He reached into his old coat and pulled out a crumpled $5 bill, smoothing it gently, as if it were a priceless note. The lobby erupted in muffled laughter. A few employees exchanged smirks, and one whispered, "He's serious? $5. Ms. Reynolds sighed, exasperated. "Sir, I'm afraid you'll have to visit a regular branch." "This is not." But before she could finish, a soft, steady voice interrupted her. "Ma'am," said Emma, a young teller with kind eyes and an honest heart, "I can help him." She had only been working at the bank for 3 months and had already noticed how quickly people judged others by appearance. "He just wants to make a deposit," she added gently. The manager looked at her as if she'd spoken out of turn, but decided not to argue in front of customers. "Fine," she said coldly. "But do it quickly." Emma guided the old man to her counter. "Thank you, dear," he said softly. His hands trembled slightly as he filled out the deposit slip with deliberate care. $5, he said with a faint smile. "It may not seem much, but it's honest money." Emma smiled back, treating him with the same respect she would offer any wealthy client. As she completed the process, she noticed something strange. The system automatically linked his name, Howard Ellington, to several dormant corporate accounts. She frowned, but didn't mention it. Maybe it was a coincidence. Maybe not. After the transaction, Mr. Howard thanked Emma and began to leave. But as he reached the door, the laughter followed him again, this time louder. A middle-aged customer sneered. "Maybe next time he'll deposit $10. Even Ms. Reynolds shook her head in disbelief. Emma felt her heart ache. How could people be so cruel? Mr. Howard turned around slowly, looking at them with a quiet smile that carried more grace than any of their suits. "Be kind," he said softly. "One never knows who's truly poor." Then he walked out, disappearing into the crowd outside. The room buzzed with whispers, but within minutes, everyone forgot about him. Everyone except Emma. She couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the old man than met the eye. That night, when she returned home, she looked up his name out of curiosity. What she found made her gasp. The name Howard Ellington appeared in several news articles, old ones, dated years back, referring to him as a reclusive billionaire investor who had disappeared from the public eye nearly a decade ago after selling his company for billions. The next morning, the atmosphere at the bank was tense. A convoy of black cars stopped in front of the entrance, and a team of men in tailored suits entered the lobby. They were accompanied by a legal advisor and a few media photographers. The staff froze, unsure of what was happening. Moments later, Mr. Howard walked in again, this time not in rags. He wore a sleek gray suit, polished shoes, and a quiet confidence that made everyone stare in disbelief. The security guard's eyes widened. Ms. Reynolds nearly dropped her tablet. "Good morning," Mr. Howard said pleasantly, handing the guard a small card. "I believe I left my deposit receipt here yesterday." The guard nodded, speechless. Cameras clicked as a few reporters whispered to each other. Apparently, Mr. Howard's reappearance was big news. The billionaire had returned to the city, and his first stop was the very bank where he had been mocked the day before. Ms. Reynolds rushed forward, trying to recover her composure. Mr. Ellington, I had no idea who you were. Please, let me apologize. But he raised his hand gently to silence her. There's no need, he said. You treated me exactly how you treat anyone you think has nothing to offer. His tone wasn't angry, just profoundly disappointed. He turned to Emma, who stood frozen at her counter, still processing the sight. You, on the other hand, he continued, smiling warmly, treated me with kindness when you had no reason to. That's rare. The entire staff watched in silence as he reached into his coat and handed Emma a white envelope. Inside, he said, is a letter authorizing a transfer, $100,000 to your account. Consider it a small thank you for reminding me that decency still exists. Emma's hands trembled. Tears welled in her eyes. Around her, the room was silent except for the clicking of a single camera capturing the moment. Before leaving, Mr. Howard turned to address the staff and the customers who had laughed at him. We live in a world, he said calmly, where the value of a person is often measured by what they wear or what they hold. But true worth, true wealth, can't be seen. It's shown through how we treat one another. His words hung in the air like a quiet echo of truth. Then, with a polite nod, he walked out of the bank, followed by his assistants and the press. For several minutes, no one spoke. The laughter, the arrogance, the mockery, all of it suddenly felt small. Ms. Reynolds lowered her gaze, her pride dissolving into shame. Emma stood still, clutching the envelope that symbolized far more than money. It was a reminder that compassion, in its simplest form, can change lives. Outside, the billionaire in rags disappeared once more into the morning light, his smile calm and knowing, as if he had never been gone at all.